From Crisis to Comeback. The story of Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire. What does it take to lead a country from chaos back to stability? Imagine a nation divided, an economy collapsing, and a leadership battle that shook the entire world. And then, one man rises, not from the military, not from a revolution, but from economics. This is the story of Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire, a man who went from banker to prime minister to president and changed the course of Côte d'Ivoire. Alassane Ouattara was born in January 1942. He is an Ivorian politician and economist who has been president of Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, since 2010. Part 1. The Rise, Prime Minister Years. Our story begins in 1990, where Côte d'Ivoire was facing serious economic problems, falling cocoa prices, rising debt, and growing public frustration. That's when President Félix Houphouët-Boigny made a bold decision and brought in an economist, a technocrat, someone with international experience. That man was Alassane Ouattara. Having worked at the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the Central Bank of West African States, Ouattara wasn't your typical politician. As a prime minister from 1990 to 1993, he implemented tough economic reforms, cutting spending, restructuring debt, and stabilizing the economy. It wasn't easy. Many Ivorians felt the pain. But slowly, the economy began to recover. However, politics was about to get complicated. Part 2. Political Struggles and Exile. After the death of President Félix Houphouët-Boigny in 1993, a power struggle began. Ouattara found himself pushed aside. Questions about his nationality, his eligibility, became weapon in politics. This period introduced the controversial idea of ivoirité, a concept that questioned who truly belonged in Côte d'Ivoire. Alassane Ouattara was excluded from elections and general schism of politics. At one point, he even went into exile. The man who once helped stabilize the economy was now shut out of power completely. Why? But he didn't disappear. He waited, he rebuilt, and he prepared for a comeback. Part 3. The 2010 Presidential Election and Crisis. Fast forward to 2010. After years of instability and civil conflict, Côte d'Ivoire held a long-awaited presidential election. Alassane Ouattara ran, and this time, he won. But the Constitutional Council, which consisted of President Gbagbo supporters, declared the results in favor of President Laurent Gbagbo with 51% of the vote cast, instead of Ouattara winning with 54%, as reported by the Electoral Commission. After the inauguration of President Laurent Gbagbo, Ouattara, who was recognized as the winner of the election by most countries and the United Nations, organized an alternative inauguration. These events raised fears of a resurgence of the civil war. Thousands of refugees fled the country. The African Union sent Thabo Mbeki, former president of South Africa, to mediate the conflict. The United Nations Security Council adopted a resolution recognizing Alassane Ouattara as winner of the elections, based on the position of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. But the sitting president then, Laurent Gbagbo, refused to step down and hand over. What followed was one of the most dangerous political crises in Africa. Violence erupted. The country was split. Thousands of lives were lost. The international community, including the United Nations, recognized Ouattara as the legitimate winner. After months of tension, struggle, and violence, Gbagbo was arrested in 2011. And finally, Ouattara took office as president. But he inherited a broken nation. Part 4. Rebuilding the Nation. Ouattara's presidency focused on one major goal: rebuilding the nation. Roads, bridges, and infrastructure projects began across the country. Under Ouattara, Côte d'Ivoire economy grew faster and became one of Africa's fastest-growing economies for over a decade. Under Alassane Ouattara,
The economy of Côte d'Ivoire runs on one key engine: agriculture. Others include mining and oil, service industries. The country is the world's largest cocoa producer, and that single crop supports millions of farmers and drives export revenue. Between 2012 to 2019, the average growth rate was approximately 8% per year. Even during the COVID-19 year, 2020, growth slowed to approximately 0.7%, but avoided recession. The nominal GDP of Côte d'Ivoire is around $84 billion as at 2024. Inflation has stayed low and stable, around 1 to 4%. The overall economy has more than doubled since 2010 under Ouattara. Foreign investors returned. Confidence was restored. Abidjan, the economic capital, transformed rapidly. But it wasn't all smooth. Critics pointed to issues of justice, especially regarding accountability after the crisis. Some believed reconciliation was incomplete. Still, many Ivorians saw progress, from war to stability and growth.
Part 5. Education and Health. Education became compulsory for children between ages 6 to 16, as well as massive school construction and teacher recruitment. Enrollment increased significantly after the Civil War. To put it mildly, there are more children in school today than before Ouattara took over. Though access improved, quality is still weak. On health, Ouattara government introduced universal health coverage program known as Couverture Maladie Universelle, CMU, and as at 2024, about 50% of the population were covered. There was increased investment in hospitals and health infrastructure, as well as training of health professionals, leading to a reduction in child mortality and increase in life expectancy rate of Ivorians. But in some rural areas, there are still challenges to access to healthcare and modern amenities. And on the streets, change is undeniable. Electricity and clean water reach more homes, roads connect more cities, and Abidjan rises as a symbol of modern Africa City. But beyond the skyline, millions still navigate poverty, informal jobs, and rising living costs, as well as youth unemployment persist. Part 6. Controversy over third and fourth term. In 2020, Ouattara made a decision that sparked major debate. After initially saying he would step down, he chose to run for a third term in 2020 and also the fourth term in October 2025, and was sworn in December 2025. His argument? A new constitution in 2016 reset the term limits. His opponents disagreed. Protests broke out. Tensions rose again. But Ouattara won the election and remained in power. To supporters, he was a stabilizer. To critics, it raised concerns about democracy and rule of law. Conclusion. Legacy. So, what is the legacy of the octogenarian Alassane Ouattara? A reformer? A survivor? A controversial leader? Maybe. All of the above. From economist to president, from exile to power, from crisis to economic growth, Ouattara's story is not just about politics. It's about resilience and the complicated journey of a nation finding its way forward. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And tell us in the comments, do you think Ouattara's leadership helped unite Côte d'Ivoire or divide it further? Thanks for watching. Bye. We hope that Côte d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast, does not become Cameroon.